Well, one fact that's been going on for the last couple of years, and it really corresponds with why the metals are going down, commodities are going down in general, is the slowdown in China. And we know there's a real estate crash going on. There's all kinds of unfinished malls out there, different projects that are just empty cities in China. And the other thing is the shadow banking system. There's a major. They don't really know what's going on with that exactly, because basically the shadow banking system in China is where you have the regular banking system that lends money out to people, but there's other people that wanted money, like construction companies doing speculation. They couldn't get loans, so they went through the shadow banking system. So basically, it's another company that's set up as a shell to lend money to somebody else, and they got the money from the regular banking system. So basically, they're in. There's a lot of credit tightening going on big time, because it's not just the regular banking establishment. It's like the whole shadow banking establishment fell apart too. And that's what's been affecting the commodities for the last couple of years. Now, there's actually different things going on. I'm just going to give you common sense on this, because I can't read something and say, yeah, this is the exact plan of what's going to happen, because even the experts don't know. All the experts don't know, but I have a pretty good idea, I think, how it's going to play out. For one, even when Gerald Celente says about the currency wars lead to trade wars, lead to real world wars, that is actually playing out right now, because like with Japan, they've embarked upon an unprecedented stimulus package to boost their exports, and it's starting to backfire because the yen is starting to strengthen again. They want the yen to weaken so they can export and boost their production. But even if that policy works, other countries aren't going to sit by and say, yeah, let Japan go ahead and do this, and we're going to just, import stuff and kill our economies. They're just not going to let that happen. But one thing that Society Generale is actually pointing out today, actually recently, is that with China, it looks like it's coming in for a very hard landing. And considering China has traditionally, in the last several years or so, going back more recent years, they've been consuming 60% of the commodities out there. That could be bearish for commodities. But the thing is, that's not the only factor that's going on. It's what's going to happen is, I think, the policy that Japan's pursuing, like going on unprecedented QE. I think all the nations are going to do that. That's probably going to be the policy of the Federal Reserve too. Now, actually, the United States is in much, much better shape than the rest of the world, at least on paper. We're not supposedly experiencing a hard landing the way China. Actually, Americans' growth is going up, per the statistics of, whoever compiles it. But you have to remember this. You could say, oh, yeah, the Western statistics are garbage. But you know what? The Chinese number is even worse. And if there's a slowdown in America and Europe, you got to remember, China doesn't have a domestic economy that much. They're basically a big-time exporter. So it is actually affecting them a lot more so than it's affecting the United States. But the one thing I want to point out is, since there's a global economic downturn, the policy of Bank of Japan is probably going to be the policy throughout the world. It's going to go to unprecedented QE. And that is why the metals are going to go up. It's not going to be because of, a factor of, there's going to be all this demand, because actually the demand stinks. The only thing actually that's going to bring up the demand is war. And that may come down later on where, trade wars lead to real wars. But that's a little ways off, I think. And, the wild card, of course, is the Middle East. There definitely could be something at any time. Nobody really knows that deal, but that would bring up the price of silver and gold and all that. But I think that the policy with Japan obviously is not working exactly the way they thought it would. It started to work in the beginning. The markets were going up. Exports were boosting. The yen was weakening. Now, all of a sudden, the yen strengthened to about where it was when they started embarking on this super QE. And we saw another thing that happened a few weeks ago with the U.S. Treasuries in the United States. They had all-time record volume, all-time record volume on the 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year notes. And then the interest rates spiked up temporarily at the highest they were from about a year ago. I think it was like 2.235%. So, what can very much happen is they got only one choice. Keep devaluing their currencies, and every country is going to pull this game. Devalue their currencies, devalue their currencies. They're all going to try to boost exports. And it's going to push the price of gold and silver up. But it probably isn't going to end in a nice way, because actually what Gerald Celente says is he's going out. It's not a wisdom of actually Gerald Celente per se. It's actually coming from the history books. Trade wars lead to real wars, because currency wars are leading to trade wars, which lead to real wars. That is actually going to make you rich, and it's going to probably be pretty tumultuous, because in the end, Uncle Sam and some of our leaders have already betrayed us behind us. Not Uncle Sam per se, but the leaders behind in the nation, in our nation, like Hillary Clinton is another one, probably did it too. I'm pretty sure I've read it. They betrayed us. They betrayed us. They basically promised all the land and real estate and everything else in the United States to China as for collateral of the debt they're holding. So it's going to actually never going to end for quite some time until it really resolves itself in a very bad way, and that's probably what's going to happen. Now, I ain't reading into the Bible or any other crap. I just think clear, because that's exactly probably how it's going to wind up, but we got some years before that's going to happen. I think in the interim, silver's probably going to hit a spike up to an all-time record high in 2014, despite all the downturns in different nations, because of, I think there's going to be a downturn in the equities too. And I think the what's going on with the physical buying of the metals is actually going to play out in the electronic market too. Because, this is one of the craziest things in the world. It's almost like, when you see the physical metals being bought up left and right by everybody when the price goes down, yet you see the price still drop. It's almost like, you have a company that stock price is dropping like a stone, and yet everybody in the world is buying up the product this company offers, and they can't produce enough of it. It's like they're got a backlog, and they're having record sales, and they're having record profits, and yet the stock price is dropping. That's almost like what's going on with the silver market. So figure it out. That is manipulation, man. I mean, part of it is, there's a slowdown in the world, but part of it is manipulation. But according to Society Generale, it looks like this slowdown is going to continue on for the next couple of years. It's not going to go away, especially in Asia. So, but what I think is, if Japan's trying to weaken their yen, there might be other countries in Asia trying to weaken their money. I don't know. But I think that's what's going to be. There's going to be a race across all the countries in the world to weaken their currency to boost exports. And that is actually going to be the factor that's going to bring up the metals a lot. Not the fact that there's going to be heavy demand due to industry. I think industry is going to stay down pretty well. But I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be a heavy demand, a heavy amount of QE going. That's going to create devaluation of the currency. And the physical demand for metals as an investment is going to stay high. I think the only thing that can actually kill the physical demand for metals is like if it gets way the hell up there, because as it starts to go up, people are going to start looking at it like, hey, I better buy it. The sky's falling, because actually what's going to come out then is all the silver pump and dumpers again, because actually silver starts going up to 30, 35, and whatever, it gets up over 40. You're going to see, a lot of voices out there talking about buy silver, buy silver. Now, I know myself, if it gets up over 50, it breaks a new high, some of it's getting sold. And I'll sell in pieces. That's exactly all I'm going to do. But I expect in 2014 silver to be about 75. And I think it's probably going to hit 150, 200 in 2017. I know, it's a ways off, but I think that's what's going to happen. It's probably what's going to happen. But on the flip side, I think the world is not going to be a safe place. So keep that in mind.